Welcome to episode 18 of the Serial Chillers podcast, brought to you by Beer Savage. I am your host, Jesse, and thank you all so much for listening. Today we have 3 serial chillers on the show. You know him, you love him, show veteran producer Greg. 2 newcomers, Brandon and Joey. Greg's going to bring us the story of the Black Dahlia murder. Joey and Brandon both wanted to shout out their Instagrams, and I totally forgot to ask them, so you can find Brandon at Saucy Brandon, Joey at Joey Lucente 8. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe if you're an iTunes user, and use the promo code Serial Chillers at beersavage.com for 20% off your entire purchase. As usual, sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 18 of the Serial Chillers podcast. All right. Well, with that, welcome to episode 18 of the Serial Chillers podcast. Thank you all for listening. 2 serial chillers in studio, 1 on the internet. The fuck you say? 3 guests. Not since episode 1 have this many people competed to be called the Serial Chiller Champion. What do you guys think of this?
I'm ready.
Hell yeah. Well, episode 18 is brought to you by Beer Savage. We've got returning way too many times, but he's here anyway. Producer Greg, all the way across the internet.
Yep.
2-time champion. His 3rd episode appearance in a row. He's looking for...
No, I don't think it's in a row.
No? 3 of the last 4. And he's on a streak. To my right, I have Brandon looking to break things up. What do you think's going to happen, Brandon?
You know, I came in here with a strategy. I'm hoping to just, dominate. Just walk out with a win.
Yeah.
Just do what I do best.
And that's win?
That's a win.
Perfect.
T-Pain voice.
And sitting straight across from me is Joey.
What's up?
Hey, dude. What's happening?
Nothing much. Just kind of here to be the sleeper pick, and I think I might take it tonight.
Woo!
I don't say much, but...
But he feels a victory is in line.
Look out.
So, once again, we've got Joey across, Brandon to the right, and Greg. Greg, I got you a theme song.
I got a theme song?
Yeah, it's stolen, and it's a callback. Greg, since you come so much and you win so often, you have been given a theme song. Every time you appear on the show, you will hear the X-Files theme.
Can I lose the theme song? Like if I start losing?
There will be
maybe like a switched up theme song.
There will be issues if you start losing. Let's just say there are no details in line. But for now, Greg, you have been given a theme song. Congratulations.
Woo!
Yes.
That is honestly probably the biggest prize that's been handed out here so far. So yeah, gosh.
I feel special, man.
Yeah, well,
I feel real special.
Greg's got a theme song. It's on now, guys. Each week, I sit down with old friends, new friends, good friends, and bad friends to tell the story of an infamous serial killer. Throughout the show, you guys will chime in and maybe have stories that are true crime, dark, creepy, unsolved, or otherwise mysterious. Here is how the game works. Yeah. There will be several questions throughout the first episode that will be worth somewhere between 250 and infinity points. Some will be multiple choice, some you will have to stab at. All questions with multiple choice are able to be stabbed at for bonus points, but if you take a stab, that's your only guess. You guys got it? Question?
Got it.
What does stabbing mean?
If you want to take a guess at the answer before you hear the multiple choice options.
Okay.
Or you can take a knife and plunge it into Brandon's stomach.
Yeah, that's
That
what
is
I was
also
thinking.
a
That's
stab.
what I was thinking
Yes.
it was. But.
So I'm glad you asked a question, because my next line is, lastly, if you have questions about the questions, make sure to ask your questions, because I cannot answer questions about questions if you never asked questions. Do you guys have any more questions?
Yeah.
What's up?
So if Joey does take the knife and stab me, are you going to do a podcast 20 years from now about Joey being a serial killer?
Oh, no. He will be awarded 250 points.
Right away.
And that will be next week's episode.
Oh.
I don't waste time.
Yeah, you're right. You're on top of it.
But somebody else is going to have to do the story unless he goes nuts and gets a bunch of you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Can we cyber stab Greg?
I mean, he doesn't live that far.
If that was possible, dude, I would have been stabbed a million times over by the internet.
That's why he's not live, Greg?
He got banned from the live
Well
show.
welcome to and let's play the Serial Chillers podcast. Are you guys ready? You're fucking ready, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Pumped.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Okay.
I'm a little disappointed that wasn't the Space Jam version.
You're ready for it to go.
Jock Jams Volume 1.
Did I get it for you there, though? Did I get you pumped up a little bit with that one?
A little.
Try it again.
All right, guys. As always, question number 1. In what year is Henry Lee Lucas born? That's your serial killer today. Henry Lee Lucas. Greg seems excited. I'm just going to tell you how excited he seems, so just to let you guys know. So this one is stab only. The closest gets 250 points. Only one person scoring on this one.
19.
You can write it down. Write it down. Everybody's going to write it down. You got it. You can cover it if you want. You could.
Price is Right rules, right?
Price is Right only if you split differences.
Oh, right.
Okay, Joe, you can show me yours. Greg, what do you got?
I got 1910.
Joey guessed 1918. Brandon said 1945. Little baby Henry Lee Lucas was born August 23rd, 1936. 250 points to Brandon. Starting it off right.
Woo!
Like he said, all he does is win.
Hey, next time I come on the show, you're going to have to play T-Pain whenever I come on.
That's a little too copyrighted for my likes. He seems like a dude who might actually sue me.
Yeah, you're right. He's been taking a couple bad beats lately.
T-Pain doesn't seem very litigious. I don't think he would.
All right, so Brandon is up 250-0-0. So like I said, Henry Lee Lucas is born August 23rd, 1936 in Blacksburg, Virginia to Nellie Viola Dixon and Anderson No Legs Lucas. He was the last of 9 children, 7 of which were placed into foster care. Only the 2 that were both of Nellie and Anderson's loins stayed, which was Henry Lee and his brother Preston. They remained in the home together, which is described as something similar to a chicken coop with a dirt floor in the Appalachian Mountains. Doesn't that sound beautiful? Both parents are extreme alcoholics, and mother is the town prostitute. Yes, mother. So mom would bring home. She has a pimp, and he's like actually kind of a nice guy to dad and to Henry. But the problem was,
you gonna be mad at the guy who lets you borrow his car? No.
Right. Well. Also, it was technically her boyfriend. So they were also dating as well as his being married.
So you're telling me
The
No
pimp.
Legs couldn't keep her satisfied?
I guess not. No Legs wasn't getting it done. But
So feel like half a man.
so No Legs used to be on like essentially a carpet dolly, and he would just kind of do a hump to get around. Think about it.
Yes, it's terrifying, but yes.
When Viola would come home with her Johns, he would be taken off that. She would take it from him and like throw him into a corner. And he was a pretty weak man otherwise, so he couldn't really get himself around.
Wow.
And when Henry was as young as 4, she used to essentially put him in a corner, and they had to watch while she serviced the Johns.
Yeah, that's epic.
Yeah, so that's kind of how Henry is going to start his life a little bit. So with Henry Lee Lucas comes another killer. He comes a little bit down the line. They're definitely known as a pair. His name is Ottis Toole.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps in the future there'll be an Ottis Toole episode, but I brought some bonus Ottis Toole questions today.
Rad.
So I figured since they were together for most of it, and they're kind of known to be together, I'll give you guys a quick rundown on Ottis. Essentially, he was like known as like a hulking, gigantic homosexual man who would dress up as a woman and go out to bars and essentially just to get people to talk shit so he could fight. And he was apparently just real good with his hands, so he would finish most of them like in high heels and a dress.
Wow.
There will be some sound clips plugged into the commercials, but Ottis Toole essentially sounded like this when he talked. Everything he said, he was just real soft-spoken, and he just,
Sounds like Bruce from Family Guy.
Yes, we killed those people, and I sliced their throats, and I strangled them, and those are the things I did. It's truly disturbing to see him sitting there, and he's one of the ugliest human beings you've ever seen in your life. Henry Lee.
Come on.
Henry Lee.
There's no need to get personal.
Henry Lee, also a very unattractive human being. That'll be kind of just our quick rundown on Ottis. Like I said, I think I'm going to do an Ottis Toole episode. So question number 2. Ottis Toole bonus corner. In what year was Ottis Toole born? This is going to be similar to the first question. Take a stab. Closest gets 250 points.
Give me 1932.
Greg says 1932. Joey says 1941. Brandon says 1936. What do we got here? Let me see. What year did you say, Greg?
1932.
What did you say again, Joey?
1941.
Ottis Toole was born March 5th, 1947. Joey, 250 there. That's the Ottis Toole bonus corner. Congratulations, Joey.
He's young.
250 points. That means Joey has 250. Brandon has 250. Greg.
0.
Doing exactly what he said he would do before we went on air. And he said he was going to let Brandon and Joey score some so that he could come storming back. So, do prophecies come true tonight? Is Greg the dark horse, as he said?
Negative.
Let's continue.
So just to
You're
clarify,
the best around.
stabbing, you just yell out the answer, and if you get it, you have to be like spot on, or
No. So, I'll let you know. There'll be some questions that are multiple choice, and I think there's only actually one tonight.
okay.
And then you'll be able to stab at that one for like 4 times the points if you get it for multiple choice.
Didn't you just say stabbing earlier, or no?
These ones are stab only because there's no multiple choice at
Yeah.
all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I was just okay.
Cool. No, get it click. We got you, dog. I said
Yeah.
ask questions about questions because if you don't ask questions, I can't ask questions about questions. So, in 1943, at 7 years old, this is when Henry's mother, Viola, a very violent, very vile woman, her name suits her attitude very, very well. She starts sending Henry dressed in dresses and puts long curly wigs on him and sends him to school. So he has to dress as a girl. And Greg, as a veteran of the show, probably knows more about some killers than he cares to now, knows that that's fairly common. And in fact, sort of kindred spirits in a way, Ottis Toole's mother would do the exact same thing.
Wow.
So these guys were just meant to be together, like really together. Anyway. When
Like 2 cross-dressed puzzle
Yeah.
pieces.
Next question.
So Viola's very awful to Henry. At one point in the same year, Henry's about 7 years old. One of his half brothers, I believe he was 12 at the time, they are knife fighting, and his half brother claims that they're pretending and it's more for fun than really anything else. But it seems more like he's trying to hurt Henry. And so during the fight, he cuts him across the face and nose and eye. And Henry's mother, Viola, being the loving, caring woman she is, says, "You'll be fine. Like, just, you're fine." His eye has been, it's literally sliced. Like he described it as like being open. Like if you were to slit a grape, that's what his eye looked like. Yeah. So his mom said he'd be fine. So it actually started to heal okay. It got kind of a bad infection at first, and they, I don't know, I guess self-medicated the Appalachian way. And Henry is at school.
Pour moonshine on it.
Pour moonshine on it. So Henry finally goes to Roanoke Hospital for 2 weeks after the infection takes hold. His mother only visits him one time while he's in the hospital for 2 weeks. It heals a tiny bit, and it's finally okay. It's in his eye, and he's at school. And there's a kid behind him misbehaving, and the teacher throws a ruler. Now, we're talking the 40s here. This is probably very common.
Yeah.
And it misses
Oh, no.
her intended target, the kid behind Henry, and hits Henry right in the eye, and it ruptured the eye. Yes,
Oh my
so
God.
at this time, also around 7 years old, Henry loses his left eye by essentially 2 separate injuries that culminate in one thing. He gets fitted for a glass eye, which I'll be perfectly honest with you, they did a really bad job.
Okay.
It was he was horrible looking.
Just a rock with paint.
You're talking
Like-
in 1942. It's not going to be.
well, and like Greg said, there's no need to get personal, but these guys literally are 2 of the most repulsive to the eyes in one sight. I'll get you guys a picture on one of the breaks, but it's, if you saw these 2 guys walking, no matter how brave or tough you are, you're probably just going to turn around and start walking really fast in the
Yeah.
other direction. There's no reason to pass these guys on the street.
If I remember right, it was something similar to Sid from House of a Thousand Corpses and Riff Raff from the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Like they're just malicious to be malicious.
Yeah.
However, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Okay.
Good drops though, bro. Good knowledge of 80s movies. So, sorry. So after he's fitted for the glass eye, the rest of his life, the eye wanders, and the word they use is weeped. It constantly weeped. So tears, his eye leaked from under the glass eye. So
The left eye, yeah.
The left eye is drooped pretty substantially by this point. It's almost always completely closed, and is just sort of leaking.
Pussy and pink.
I think it was just, tears. Like,
Yeah.
it was just a gross, clear fluid running down his face at most times, always. And I was listening to the last podcast episode because they did a very good rundown of Henry Lee Lucas in 3 one-hour episodes. And they said that in one of their researches, they saw that because, you lose almost all of your depth perception when you only have one eye. There's no way to
See what's going on.
Yeah. So he would walk sideways, like kind of crab style, so he could see. He felt it gave him a better like field of vision because he was able to use his periph really well, and it felt like he said it felt like it gave him a little more of the depth back. So he would sort of walk sideways to his right, crab style.
Wow.
So
I like to think of that and then his eye going up into the opposite direction and like just kind of crying the whole time.
yeah. So to say the least, he has a very distinctive look from a very young age. At one point the next year, he's 8 years old, and his mother's giving him a good old-fashioned beating, and she strikes him over the head several times with a 2x4, splitting his scalp open to the bone. He was obviously rendered unconscious by this and left there for 3 days unconscious. So most experts say that you shouldn't be unconscious for like more than maybe a minute or two. It could result in permanent brain damage. And as far as Henry Lee Lucas claims, and can be corroborated by 1 or 2 people, he was unconscious for 3 days. And his mom isn't even the one that decided to take him to the hospital. His mom's boyfriend and pimp, Bernie Dowdy, decided this kid probably needs some help.
Shout out to Bernie.
Bernie Dowdy, yes. So Bernie Dowdy takes him to the hospital. Henry comes back. He lives, but there are going to be repercussions for this. Henry is not a bright man. I don't think that he was ever destined to be in the first place. This situation and the upbringing he had was
Gnarly.
it happens in every episode. We feel bad right now, and we're like, man, he just never had a chance. But, we're at 20 minutes or so here. By an hour, we're going to be like, man, fuck this guy. God damn it.
So far, I was thinking that, man,
Yeah.
he's just born to be fucked up.
It does not get better. So,
So hold on, quick. We've got traumatic head injury.
Yep.
And abusive mother. Was there anything else that we missed or that I'm missing? I'm trying to keep track of.
in the triad, it's
Trying to figure out if this guy fits the profile to be a serial killer or not.
Arson, bedwetting, and a head injury are like the 3 things I believe that they're the triangle or the triad. There's some name before it, but those are the 3 things that a lot of serial killers and psychopaths have in common is a head injury at a young age, bedwetting, and arson.
Wow. And
petty theft, I think, goes along with it a lot too. Yeah, not. So he's 10 years old now, and he has become an alcoholic. He is consistently being given liquor by his father, and they are making a little bit of money, though. That's the deal. They're running a still to make money. Now, as you just learned, the family had a still and made liquor for side cash. What liquor did they make? This is multiple choice, but you are able to stab for 1,000 points. If you're going to stab, don't do it yet. Would anybody like to stab?
No.
Brandon's going to wait for multiple choice. Greg, would you like to stab? And if you are just tell me if you are. Don't give me the answer.
Nah.
Greg's gonna wait for multiple choice. Joey, would you like to stab?
No, I'll wait as well.
Okay. The multiple choice options are A, whiskey, B, rum, C, moonshine, or D, vodka. 250 points for a correct answer. You guys can all get points off this one. Whiskey, rum, moonshine, and vodka. We'll let these guys get their answer written down before I have you give me yours, Greg. Good over there. You can show me. What do you got, Greg?
I'm going to say whiskey.
Joey and Greg both go with whiskey. Brandon goes with the dark horse moonshine and scores an additional 250 points. The answer is C,
I
moonshine.
even made
Hey.
the fucking joke.
This guy Joey just laughed at me too.
And those are the moments that we don't edit out.
Woo!
Moonshine was in the 20s and shit.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't want to go with that.
Yeah.
You guys all get mad at me for drinking.
Well, we have to remember these are some pretty simple backwood folks in the Appalachian Mountains living in a dirt floor shack.
Yeah.
I think moonshine is just really all they have.
Right up the creek.
The kid crab walks with a bad glass sign and got a half dad. Like,
I think this was very early Kyler moonshine. Like it made you go blind and sort of hallucinate for a few days.
mostly antifreeze.
Yeah. So Brandon's got 500. Joey's got 250. Greg, even though he made the joke and got me very nervous about him nailing that answer before it even started, still at 0 points. We're a third of the way through the questions, and it's 500.
Almost stabbed at it too.
250. 0. Brandon in the lead. Joey in second. Greg trailing.
1-0.
Do I have to send my prize pack back if I lost?
No, that's yours, man.
You actually have to send over your introduction beat.
Oh no.
Brandon wants an intro beat, brother.
I'll see. I'll talk to management.
Hey.
So later this year, after he's become an alcoholic, it starts getting dark, boys. As if it hadn't before. Another one of his half-brothers shows him how to kill animals by slicing their throat and then having sex with them.
Oh my God.
Slicing their throat apparently made them buck in such a way that made it a more pleasurable experience. So he's got a half-brother that has now taught him a new life skill. Hey, you kill them like this, and you have sex with them like this. And they took a calf out to a field, and he gave him the example, and Henry Lee Lucas had a new skill for the rest of his life. Isn't that some brotherly bonding right there, boys?
This is some effed up bonding.
So the next year, 1947, Henry's now 11 years old. His father loses his legs and gains the nickname No Legs. How does he lose his legs? We're not going to make it a question for you because it's just too funny. You want to make it a question?
I know this one.
You do know this one? Oh, it's
so.
too bad. Okay, so he loses his legs because...
Wait. Greg, how does he lose his legs?
Oh, okay.
Get hit by a train?
He loses his legs because he's mad faded one night and goes and just kind of lays down on the train tracks. Legs all the way across it, and
Oh my
a
God.
very slow moving but unaware train just sliced him off about mid-thigh. So he kept all of the important goods for the most part, but he didn't have anything from,
Can't believe he survived
he...
that time period too, you know?
Well, my thought was, how drunk was he? Like, your blood is so thin when you're so wasted that you didn't hear a train coming.
Good old moonshine, baby.
So, he passes out on the train track. Slow-moving train rolls over. Hot knife through butter, I'm sure. In 1949, he's 13 years old and becomes just incredibly obsessed with sex. By this point, he's murdering animals to have sex, and it's not quite enough.
There's
So
other ways.
there are other ways. He and his half-brother will begin having sex with one another, as well as helping each other have sex with the animals.
They definitely didn't have Tinder back then, so
They did not.
more
1947.
rough, you know, Greg.
13-year-old Henry Lee Lucas and one of his half-brothers would begin a sexual relationship with dead animals and each other. The thing about the killings was that it sounded like these were very, at least, seemingly ritualistic.
Yeah.
Like they seemed very devil worshiper, and we're talking years before Satanic Panic. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. Essentially a period in the late 80s where, everybody was afraid of Satan. Yeah, people thought like there were groups of devil worshippers killing. There were none.
Illuminati.
But Geraldo got some shit hyped up. Yeah, exactly. So essentially they're doing it in a really weird way. They're fucking each other. They're fucking dead animals. Anything they can get. In 1950, Anderson No Legs Lucas dies.
Poor man.
Question number 4. How did Anderson die? This is multiple choice only on this one. Is it A, alcohol poisoning? B, unfortunately, another train accident? C, exposure due to passing out outside? Or D, as he was carting home, a dog attacked him, and since he had no legs, he could not get away?
Okay, I know which one I want it to be.
Yeah, me too. Okay, one more time on the
alcohol poisoning, another train accident, exposure due to passing out outside, or a dog attacking him.
Wow. This is a pickle right here.
The dog might have thought he was a pickle.
Yeah, that might have been it. You might have just gave away the answer.
Oh, shit.
Can I guess?
Brandon's got... Yeah, Greg, let's hear it.
Okay, I want exposure.
Greg says exposure. Joey says another train accident. Brandon says alcohol poisoning.
I wanted another train accident. That's what I wanted it to be.
I
that or
definitely
the dog.
wanted that to be.
The prophecy begins to come true. Greg scores 250 points. One night, Anderson No Legs Lucas had quite a bit to drink, wandered outside alone, laid down somewhere in the snow, and that would be the last time anybody ever saw him alive.
See, that would, if I totally remembered where we're at and which location, that would have helped. Damn it.
So
good job, Greg.
Rest in peace, Anderson.
Thanks, fellas.
No Legs Lucas. Congratulations to Greg in the third of the contest. Is on the board with 250. Has tied Joey up at 250. Brandon still holds down the lead with 500. All right, boys. 8 questions? 5 questions to go. A lot more Henry Lee Lucas to go. So he passes out drunk in the snow. And at this point, Henry is trying to get away from his abusive mother. His dad's gone. He feels untethered because I think he felt the need to protect his dad because his mom was just as awful to his dad as he was to him. And it doesn't really, at least that I saw, say that anywhere. But
implied for sure.
I don't even know that. That's just what I feel, is that he could have probably left at any point, but I think he was trying to make sure his mom didn't kill his old man. And for what it sounds like, she may not have directly done it, but it sounds like that's pretty much what happened. Anyway.
Yeah.
He couldn't handle it anymore, brother. All right. So we're going to head to 1951. Henry's now 15 years old, and he claims at this point that he abducted a 17-year-old girl from a bus stop and beat her until she was unconscious. At this point, he dragged her off the road and into a clearing where he raped her and strangled her to death. There's no record to support this at all. This is just a Henry Lee Lucas claim.
I know he's not a smart man, but why would you beat her unconscious on the road?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, beat her unconscious off the road and then drag her further off the road? Because, what if people saw you? Then you're caught. That's just...
I think if as we continue to go on, and even though you know Henry Lee Lucas a little bit, you're going to see exactly how stupid he is. Yeah. He's real dumb.
Could you blame the guy? He walks like a crab, has one eye.
I am
Always
gonna
constantly crying.
I am gonna blame him. He's murdering people. It's just, really no excuse.
I'm still blaming his mother.
So again, there's no record to support this. This is kind of gonna be a trend for Henry Lee Lucas. This is him saying in the past that he did that at 15 years old, but he gets a little bit of a reputation later. In 1952, he's 16 years old, and he and two of his half-brothers were arrested for burglary. He was committed to a vocational school for juvenile delinquents in Beaumont, Virginia, and at some point he managed to escape the Christiansburg County Jail, where he was placed for a hold while they were outside of the juvenile delinquent center. He was on the run for 2 weeks and eventually just turned himself in. He said he was tired of running. He is then sent back to Beaumont, where he lived, quote, luxuriously, which meant that he got plumbing, electricity, and, by his claim, the first hot meal of his entire life.
Sounds like the 21st century.
Right. So he said that his mother, that they had hot meals at his house. The mom would cook hot meals for herself and the boyfriend, and would always leave Preston, Henry Lee, and Anderson No Legs out. They got to sort of fend for themselves and eat the not hot food, apparently. While he is at the institution, he is evaluated by staff, and they say he's got an IQ somewhere around 76. That is very below average. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with IQ. I wasn't when I started podcasting. I've had to because it tells us this every serial killer's IQ. That's very low. Yeah. Yes. So in 1953, at 17 years old, he's released from Beaumont, and he went to Ingalls, North Carolina, to stay with his brother Andrew, another half brother. Like I said, there's 8 siblings, so he's well connected. It did not work out there. Soon after, he travels to Staunton, Virginia, where he lived with his half-sister Nora Crawford, and he claims while he was there that he raped his 12-year-old niece. Almost certainly did not do that either. In 1954, he's now 18. We are talking adult Henry Lee Lucas here. He's arrested and convicted for another burglary. He is sentenced to 4 years in Richmond Penitentiary. At this point, he escapes with another inmate again from the work crew. They're out on the side of the freeway doing their deal or whatever, breaking rocks, whatever they were having him do in 1956. And he escaped from there. They stole a car and... they stole a car in Kentucky and headed toward north to Lenawee County, where his half-sister Opal Jennings lived. He was captured and served an 18-month sentence in Ohio for violating the Federal Dyer Act, which is transporting a stolen car across state lines, and his escape from jail. While driving through Ohio, he meets a girl named Stella and falls in love. He returns to Virginia to finish his burglary sentence, and due to his addiction to sex, he engaged in what he says, quote, regular homosexual relationships in prison. He just had to have it. It didn't matter where it came from. To Henry Lee Lucas, quote, a hole is a hole. That is a Henry Lee Lucas quote.
That sounds like a Joey quote.
Oh, you beat me
That
to it.
sounds just like a Joey quote,
You
to be
beat me
honest.
to it.
Oh, man.
That's nasty.
A hole is a hole, man.
So in 1959, he is 23 years old now. He's released from prison and travels to Tecumseh, Michigan to stay with his half-sister Opal again. He contacts Stella and says, Stella, will you marry me? And of course, Stella says yes.
Stella doesn't seem very bright either.
Yeah.
She's not. But if you lower your standards, you can be Henry Lee Lucas and find a woman that will wait for you to get out of prison and marry you. So that just goes to show you that as long as you're not too picky, you guys, there is someone for everyone. And isn't that nice? So with that, we're going to take a quick break right here. Come back with a little more Henry Lee Lucas, and God damn it anyway. Come back or I'll kill you.
Thirsty? Crack open a cold one and visit beersavage.com. Beer Savage is a lifestyle beer movement that enhances the beer experience through accessories and apparel. Visit beersavage.com now and use offer code SerialChillers and receive 20% off your entire purchase. beersavage.com. Good things stumble upon those who channel their inner beer savage.
All right. Welcome back to the Serial Chillers podcast. We took a break because, honestly, we fucking had to. Henry Lee Lucas, thank you very much. I don't know why I did him after Wesley Allen Dodd. I should have taken a break and done something a little lighter, I guess. I'm not sure if there's such thing as a light serial killer. Again, welcome back. I'm your host, Jesse. Sitting to my right is Brandon. Across from me is Joey. And across the internet, #FuckYouCraig. Yes. So we're going to jump right back into it. Henry has just got engaged to a woman named Stella that he met while he was on the run driving across Ohio as a prison escapee. So wonderful. Good, pretty good,
Yeah,
good way to meet. Yeah.
She's going to mellow him out, right?
That's exactly what happens. How did you know?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's a good love story.
So a little later the next year, about 3 months into the engagement, Viola shows up in Michigan. That's where they are at this point. I'm sorry, I should have cleared that up. They go to Michigan to live with Opal. Viola shows up and begs Henry to return to Blacksburg, Virginia. Pretty much seems like she didn't want him to be happy. That's almost exactly what it seems like. Like, what? He got engaged? He's out of prison? It sounds like he's doing decent?
Come back home.
Yeah, no, fuck that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So she goes and she makes kind of a scene. They're at a bar and they get into like a heated verbal argument. And they go back to Opal's house and they're fighting and they're still fighting. They're both just fucking blind drunk. And Viola takes a broom and just smashes it over the top of Henry's head. And Henry at this point has like pulled like a small pocket knife, like a 2-inch little blade. And as she's swinging the broom down, he just kind of takes a swing at her, and apparently just it does not seem as if he did this intentionally. He did swing at her with a knife in his hand, and he did nick her on the neck. It wasn't violent. It was one wound, and she was bleeding pretty hard, but nobody returned back to the home for over 14 hours. So when someone did, Viola was found dead, and she had just bled out in the room that Henry had stabbed her in. Henry began to just drive to his mother's home. He said he was panicked because he knew he had hit his mother and he wasn't sure or not if he had stabbed her. And if he had, he had wondered if anybody was going to find her before she died. They didn't. So he's picked up by the state police 8 days later for hitchhiking and sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder of his mother. Yeah. Prison staff intercepted a letter a year later from Henry to Opal, his half-sister, hinting that he may commit suicide in prison. He was then taken and professionally evaluated, and he admitted to killing his mother and having sex with her corpse.
Wow.
This will begin a new trend.
Not metal enough.
Findings from the professionals include a low IQ, depression, and, quote, acute situational upset in a person of borderline intelligence. 1961, everybody. He was reevaluated 9 months later and diagnosed as passive-aggressive personality dependent type. After claiming to hear voices, that was kind of one thing. That if this passive-aggressive personality dependent type, essentially what this means is he's very non-assertive and very needy. He's like overtly needy. Like he needs to be wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, after claiming to hear voices and attempting suicide by slashing his wrists, he was transferred from Jackson to the state hospital with a diagnosis of schizophrenic reaction simple type. He remains in Iona State Hospital for the criminally insane for 4 years. He is then transferred back to Jackson Maximum Security Prison when he is deemed just fine. We are now at 1966. He's 6 years into his 20 to 40 year sentence. Question number 5. How long will he actually serve of his 20 to 40 year sentence? You're just going to have to...
6 years in now, right?
He's 6 years in now. I'm looking for the total amount of years he's going to spend. So include the 6. How many years does he spend? Closest to the answer gets 250 points. And just as a reminder, we are at Greg 250, Joey 250, Brandon 500. Still anybody's game.
And we're just stabbing at it, right? No multiple choice.
No multiple choice on this one.
Okay, just making sure.
So I got answers here, Greg. What do you got?
Give me 9 years.
Greg says 9.
What
Brandon
is 9?
said 12. Joey said 15. In 1970, at the age of 34, Henry Lee Lucas is paroled after 10 years to his half-sister, Nora Crawford. That's going to be Greg for the guess of 9. Only off by 1 year. In his 20 to 40 year sentence for murdering his mother in the second degree, Henry Lee Lucas serves 10 years.
Greg's done his reading.
Greg has done his reading, also his prophesizing, because now Greg has began to charge back with another 250, ties Brandon at 500 after 5 questions. All right, let me match. Yep, definitely 5 questions. Joey 250, Brandon still 500. So we've got 2 guys at the top, 500 points. What's gonna happen? It's so close. My
It's
God.
anybody's ball game.
Anybody's ball game. So like I said, 1970, he's paroled to Nora Crawford, another half-sister. She lives in Elkton, Maryland. Later, we're going to kind of like to sprinkle these in here. He's going to claim that within eyeshot of the prison, within sight of the prison, right after his release, he killed 2 women on the very same day. There's absolutely no evidence that that ever took place, but Henry does claim it. 2 months later, after moving to Elkton, Maryland with his sister, he moves to Port Deposit, Maryland, where his half-sister Wanda Weaver lived with her husband and 3 daughters. That also does not work out, so he went to live with Opal again after a conflict with Wanda. From what I understand, essentially he would live with family for a little bit, and when they would get tired of him, they would essentially throw the fact that he murdered their mom in his face and tell him to leave.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how he was getting bounced around a little bit.
He's got, 8 more homes to go to?
He's covered a lot of them. I think he's actually been at 5 or 6 of them now. In 1971, he's 35 years old now. He's charged with attempted kidnapping of teenage girls Leslie Warren and Marcy Goodwin from a bus stop in Palmyra, Michigan. He also violated parole by being in possession of a handgun and claims he, quote, craves women all of the time and had an urge to scare them, end quote. He is sentenced to 4 to 5 years in prison in Jackson once again. Question number 6. How long of this 4 to 5 year sentence does he serve?
Henry's what age now?
Henry is 35. This one you can stab at. It's going to have to be exact, though.
Okay.
And there are also multiple choice.
I'm stabbing at it.
Very good.
You want me to go for it?
You can write it down. Write it down for your stab. Joe, you going to stab? You want to go multiple choice? Joey's going to stab at it, too. Greg, you chilling? You going?
I'll stab.
Greg is going to stab as well. Okay. Okay, Greg, what are you stabbing at?
I want 3 years.
3 years. Very close, Greg. It was 3.5 years. 3.5 years.
Ooh, good thing we all didn't get that right?
Yeah, so no points awarded all the way around.
I didn't know we could go half years. All right.
The multiple choice was there.
Yeah,
you guys decided to stab. That's how the
Exactly.
game works.
I didn't even think of that.
You know,
What'd you put, Brandon?
cry me a river.
Put full sentence.
So 1975. Yeah, sorry. Brandon said full sentence. Joey said 2 years. Greg said 3. If it comes down to a tiebreaker, Greg, this will be it. How about that? Since everybody was cloudy about the specificity. If it comes down to a tie, Greg's gonna win it because of that question and his closeness. You
Wait,
guys.
the full sentence was 4 years?
Full sentence would have been 4 to 5 years. Or 5 years. Yeah. Okay. So in 75, he's released from prison after serving 3.5 of the years. He claims he begged not to be released because he was a danger to society. He went to stay with his half-sister Wanda in Perryville, Maryland. Wanda takes him back once more. Soon after, he went to stay with Wanda's daughter Laverne in Pennsylvania, where he worked on a mushroom farm. Not even the magic kind.
Oh, bummer.
We probably would have kept him on the right track if it was.
At this point, he marries a woman named Betty Crawford, the widow of his nephew. I guess I could have made more clear back there. Stella dipped. She was not hanging out with a mother murderer.
She survived, though?
The mom?
Stella.
Stella, who knows where she is now.
Definitely.
Yeah. But she got out of there. I don't think Henry got her. Yeah.
She made the right choice.
She's smarter than we thought.
Exactly. So after leaving Wanda, he goes to stay with Wanda's daughter, Laverne, in Pennsylvania. He works on the mushroom farm, marries Betty Crawford, who is the widow of his nephew.
Oh, wow.
So his nephew dies, and he marries his wife. Henry Lee Lucas, everybody. So he began to sexually abuse Betty Crawford's 3 young daughters while demanding the girls watch when they have sex. So he's sort of reverting back to childhood and saying, girls, you gotta watch. Me and mommy.
For a second, I thought you meant like he was mugging them while he was having sex. Like he was asking for their watch, like give me your watch.
Nope.
And yeah, no, it took me a second. That the second one's more fucked up. My thing was
Greg, how are you in the point system right now?
I'm near the top.
I know, man.
So he threatens to kill the kids essentially if he told Betty that they were being abused, I guess, outside of being forced to watch sex. Betty, obviously very smart, gets the fuck out of there. The next year, he's alone again and meets Ottis Toole. He and Ottis Toole meet in a soup kitchen where Ottis often went to troll for other gay and bisexual men to take home and have sex with. So if you'll remember, I said earlier, there's someone for everybody if you're willing to lower your standards. They said it on last podcast as well. I listened to it today. There is someone for everyone.
They're destined
They
to be
might be
together.
at a soup kitchen ready to have a homosexual relationship with you.
Yeah.
You just never know who you're going to find where.
I feel like it would be angry sex too. It wouldn't be like there'd be no kissing of the neck.
No.
Like it would be like pin my forehead to the mattress.
You know Ottis is a genuine dude. He's going to take care of you.
I don't know that he is.
So
Oh, man.
he meets Ottis Toole, and like we listened to a little bit of Ottis Toole off the air. We heard his voice. I mean, I didn't show you guys the most clear video ever, but you got the idea.
Psychopath.
Yeah, like I said, I'll plug him in a little bit so you guys can kind of hear. But yeah, he is awful dude. And as a team, if they're to be believed, they did a lot of damage. I put here, they may or may not have gone on some type of insane crime spree at this point in 1976. In 1978, Henry Lee Lucas meets Rhonda Knuckles and moves in with her for 3 months. Yes, that's right, Rhonda Knuckles.
Yes.
That is a real name, by the way. Rhonda Knuckles and Henry live together for 3 months. At this point, Henry accuses her of infidelity and claims that he would rather kill her than let anyone else have her. She quickly leaves. Once again, a couple smart ladies around Henry Lee Lucas for the first time. Rhonda would later write I put in quotes, book, because apparently it's less than 70 pages long, called
Pictures that she drew.
How I Survived Henry Lee Lucas. So once Henry leaves Rhonda Knuckles, or once Rhonda Knuckles leaves Henry, he moves in once more with Opal, gives him the boot, and he's back with Wanda again. I don't have an exact count, but I'm pretty sure he's been with them at least 3 and 4 times, or 4 and 5 times. He's been there quite a bit.
Knuckles knuckled out of there, you know?
Knuckles, Sonic came back, and they rolled out together. That's what happened. So in 1979, a 43-year-old Henry Lee Lucas meets up once more with Ottis Toole, and he meets Ottis Toole's family. And at this point, they begin quite the homosexual relationship together. One's addicted to sex, one is a homosexual man. They had something both of them needed, and they shared that mutual interest in one another and decided to take that to the next level. So,
Ow, chicka, wow, wow.
and at this point, Henry moves in with Ottis and his wife, Novella, and they live in Florida. So Novella and Ottis sort of had an agreement. They were progressive. It's the late 70s. She knew that he was out,
Banging dudes.
yeah, for the most part, and she was okay with it because it seemed like Ottis definitely got the taste for women. He wanted women as well, not as often as he wanted guys. So it worked out pretty well for him to be married to Novella, although she would not stick around much longer once Henry had got there.
What?
Yeah, what? Who knew? So 2 years later in 1981, Sarah, Ottis's mother, dies. So Ottis and Henry go and just give her the best funeral you could ever think, the best send-off possible. The problem is, unfortunately, that is not true. Ottis and Henry went and stole possessions from the mother and left while essentially kidnapping her grandchild, who she had been watching, Becky, who is Ottis's niece. 2 months later, Ottis and Henry steal Ottis's brother's truck. They come back for a little more, and they get caught for it. And apparently Ottis gets away. Henry does 3 months for stealing the truck. So at this point, Henry and Becky and Ottis are all together, and there might be a lot of fucking between the three of them.
Yeah.
Becky is 11. And Henry and Becky are in love, they say. So Henry does 3 months in jail for stealing the truck. After getting out of jail, Henry and Becky head to Texas. They leave Ottis behind. They've been apart essentially since they get caught for this theft. Later in 1982, they're in Texas together. During the time they're separated, this is when Ottis is supposed to have gone on an actual spree that most murders can be corroborated. It's not just he kind of went out and went berserker on his own. There was actually one that is very infamous. It would lead to a TV show later. Question number 7. Ottis is said to have killed a young man whose father would later become famous. No multiple choice. You can give me either the dad who becomes famous, his name, or the kid's name who was murdered, and it will give you 500 points. This one is a little more in depth. We could take our time here, guys. If you need a couple minutes, think about it. Like I said, we can shorten this up.
I'll say it again. It was.
So this is 19. This is late 81, and there's a very infamous child abduction that takes place. It's going to lead to a TV show, actually 2, and the dad is going to become famous.
I got it.
I'm giving it all to you. Write it down. I'll take the dad's name.
Oh.
Or the son's name.
How about a last name?
Last name's fine. Or their shared last name.
This is like far-fetched, so.
Okay. Joe, you got anything? You guys are younger, too. Greg and I weren't alive for this, but we are definitely... I can't see it, Greg.
If I had
Back
like
it
a
up
phone a
little
friend, I would
bit.
use it right now and call my mom.
So I'm
She'd definitely know
definitely
this.
wrong then.
All right,
If
just-
this is before your time.
What do you? Oh wait, Joey's guys.
No, I'm definitely wrong if this is before your time. For
You think
sure.
so?
Oh yeah.
I can't get an answer without any more information.
But
I'm not sure.
It's worth a shot.
All right, what do you got?
Damn it.
No, we got Kardashian. He says. Oh, Greg says Jerry Bruckheimer. Joey, not old enough, to have had some experience in this. None of those are correct answers. Sorry, guys.
Thank God.
What do
I'm
we got?
so curious to see what it is.
So, on
2 TV shows, huh?
July 27th, 1981, Adam John Walsh was an American boy who was abducted from a Sears department store at the Hollywood Mall in Hollywood, Florida on July 27th, 1981. His severed head would be found 2 weeks later in a drainage canal alongside Florida's Turnpike in rural St. Lucie County, Florida. His death earned national publicity, and his story was made into a 1983 television film, Adam, seen by 38 million people in its original airing.
Holy shit.
His father, John Walsh, became an advocate for victims of violent crimes and was the host of a popular television show, America's Most Wanted.
I could have got that one, dude.
Convicted serial killer Ottis Toole confessed to Adam's murder, but was never convicted for this specific crime due to loss of evidence and recanted confession. Toole died in a prison of liver failure on September 15, 1996. Although no new evidence has come forth, on December 16, 2008, police announced that the Walsh case had been closed as they were satisfied that Toole was, in fact, the murderer.
So, do we have an exact count of, or can we get like a number, maybe offline?
I'll give you some stuff, but the problem here is it's very convoluted, all of it. There are some claims that Henry will... We'll get there. We'll get there. I'll give you all the numbers.
What about, side
Ottis?
question, the dad? How many people he's caught since?
John Walsh? Oh, man.
Shit ton.
I will put that in the intro of the outro.
Yeah.
How many people John Walsh has helped catch. I'm not saying that it was worth him losing his son.
No, but shout out to that guy
yeah,
for
definitely,
stepping up and
right.
Yeah, that's gnarly for
Right.
sure.
Way to affect positive.
Yeah,
Exactly.
take that.
So,
negative crap.
thanks Wikipedia for that kind of quick little paragraph rundown on Adam Walsh.
Yeah.
Sad story. It's kind of side story. I told you guys to give you a little Ottis Toole action. That is
Fuck Ottis Toole.
that's that. Yeah. So We're going back here. We're back in Texas. We're with Henry and Becky now. They live together and worked for an elderly woman named Kate Rich.
That's so crazy still.
Yeah. Rich would allow Becky and Henry to sleep in the house of worship where she worked. This is like a small church where people come to pray whenever they want. Essentially, it's kind of a 24-hour thing. Eventually, Rich would fire both of them for stealing money. And at this point, Becky becomes very homesick. She insists they return to Florida. She just really wants to get back home. And I think at this point she's 13. Henry Lee Lucas, level head, does what any 46-year-old man would do to a 13-year-old when they want to go home. He puts her on a bus and sends her fucking home.
Wrong.
Yeah, he killed her instead. Yeah. He took her out to a field, killed her, dismembered her, and scattered her body parts around the field.
Fuck.
Right. So after this, he said he took a few hours to do this. He calls Kate Rich, who he had recently been fired by, and said, like, look, when you fired us, Becky and I got in this huge fight, and she ran away out into this field. I haven't seen her for a few hours. I need your help finding her. So Kate Rich, being the God-loving woman she was, said, yeah, of course, let's go find her, and put all personal issues that they had aside and said, let's go find Becky. He took her to an adjacent field, killed her, and stuffed her body into a drainage pipe where he would have sex with her corpse a few times. In 1947, he would be questioned by Phil Ryan of the Texas Rangers, not the baseball team, concerning the missing Kate Rich. He denied that he killed her, but he claimed that he met her through a minister, Mr. Moore, who had introduced them to Kate Rich, where they were able to stay on the floor of the house of prayer. He claimed that Becky ran away with a truck driver and took all of his money. So he's got his bases covered. Like, I don't know this Miss Rich that you're even talking about. I met her once, and I stayed at the place she worked, but I don't really know her. And Becky fucking stole my money and dipped. Like, he essentially said they got to a truck stop. She met someone she liked a little better and decided to go with him, and took all his cash.
Totally adds up, right?
Definitely. So, yeah, he's arrested at this point on a weapons charge because they know some fishy shit is happening. And you guys have seen how it works. They get you on what they can and try to get more evidence while they got you. Right.
Yeah,
so,
most definitely.
While Henry is put into prison.
Run some blood.
Right. He tells an officer that, quote, he had done some bad things. And right now we're going to take our second break. We're going to come back and hear Greg's story. And then we will come back with the finale of Henry Lee Lucas after that. So make sure you guys come back because there is more, I swear. Hey gang, it's Jesse. And I have brought you a few audio clips from the two killers we're talking about today. First up for you, I have a recording. It's about 3 minutes long. This is part of a 1990 Huntsville, Texas interview Henry Lee Lucas did. He talks a little bit about his family over the next 3 minutes here, so enjoy. Or don't. You probably won't, but, you know.
So, who were your parents? Can you talk about them?
My parents was drunks and prostitutes. And,
Your mother was a prostitute?
so actually, talking about them is like talking about a nightmare.
Really? You sound like you had some good memories of childhood there.
Well, I did with my brother, when we played or something like that. We always had a good time. Our lives as far as growing up is, I guess you say the way other children grow up was different.
Were you abused or just...
I was abused. I was dressed as a girl for about 7 years of my life.
By who?
By my mother. I had to wear a dress. I had to wear long hair. I was treated as a girl,
She wanted a daughter, or what happened?
That's my opinion, I don't know why she did it, but that's what I feel.
Where's your father?
He's dead. He died in 1951, double pneumonia and being drunk.
What was his name?
Anderson.
Lucas. And your mother's name?
Viola. She died in 60. we got in a fight and she got killed.
Okay, so is that the only, I was thinking that was the only killing that you had.
That is. That's the only one I know of, that I've ever done.
What happened?
We got in a fight. I was drunk and she was, I guess, drinking quite heavily. She come home where I was living at, and she started beating me in the head with a broom handle. And that's the last I remember, I just went out and she ended up dead.
How had she died?
They say she died from a stab wound, somewhere in the neck. So I don't know. I took responsibility for it because I knew I lived there, and I knew she was there, and she ended up dead. So I was the only one that I could feel had done it. But as far as stabbing her with a knife, I don't remember nothing about that. I know if they say it happened, it must have happened. But, I take responsibility for it anyway.
Are you a violent person?
I don't think so. Everybody I know that knows me, personally, I don't think they can say I'm violent.
So we're obviously later into Henry's life during that clip where he has confessed to some killings and recanted those confessions and given them back, and he's now at a point during this clip you just heard where he's claiming that killing his mother is the only death that he has been responsible for. So he was a pretty heavy advocate for reverting to Christianity, and I think that he had, at this point, he had found God, and I think it's a little ridiculous. He never fully takes responsibility. You hear him in the clip say, well, they say I must have done it, so I guess that's what happened. And he never says that I stabbed her. He knows that he was there and she died, so that must have been what happened. Anyway, let's move on here. I'm going to have one more short clip for you. Less for the content, more just so you can hear what Ottis Toole sounded like. Hopefully I can get to a full episode on Ottis Toole. We can talk about a little bit of his craziness as we get to it. But yeah, here's Ottis Toole. You guys enjoy that.
Just like I tried to come down the hall with someone with a t-shirt on. I've been wearing a t-shirt, and they said, no, you can't come down the hall with a t-shirt on. You got to put that green shirt on. So they shipped me to ACI, and then they turned around and shipped me back from ACI because they said I had too much time. They didn't want to keep me in ACI. They wouldn't put me on the compound at ACI. It's kind of wild. She's kind of in devil worship, witchcraft and all that. Buddhist, and she went through a lot of that, and done things with bones and what have you, herbs and what have you too. And so she done a lot of that, She said she could make spirits, with all kind of herbs and what have you. They would do calm down sickness and all that too, different ways. Me and her used to go to the graveyard quite a bit. Sometimes to dig up bones, So that was kind of wild, kind of wild. I had a little bit all kind of childhood. I even been molested by my stepfather and what have you too when I was a kid.
So you kind of see there what we were talking about in the episode as well, where Ottis Toole is a giant, lurching, very ugly individual and sounds like a tiny little timid man when you actually hear him. I know the clip was real buzzy and a little tough to hear, and that was even after I cleaned it up, and I'm not an engineer. So essentially he's just talking about some of the wild times he and Henry had, how they had dug up some bones. He talks about how he was molested by his stepfather. Again, a lot to unwind with Ottis Toole. Hopefully we can get into him a little later. So that's it for this break, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Calling something rad is pretty
That's
tough.
a very interesting thing you just told me.
Welcome back to episode 18 of the Serial Chillers podcast. We are deep in it. So
Fuck Greg.
We're gonna
All right, take two. Sorry.
No, we're just gonna roll with it. We're gonna take a little break from Henry Lee Lucas here. Greg has prepared a story and brought it for us. Greg tells some of the better stories that have come from the show. Not to hype them up too much, but I'm just pretty stoked to hear what you brought, Greg. Plus, I kind of know a little bit about what you're gonna talk about. So sit back, relax, everybody. Greg's got a story. Yes.
The mysterious Greg.
All right, Greg. What do we got?
This is the murder of Elizabeth Short, most popularly known as the Black Dahlia murder, not the cool metal band, but the uncool murder of a young lady in 1947.
Walking fine lines.
Yeah, it was pretty uncool. In fact, the coolest thing I read about her was that her dad made mini golf courses. Like that was his job. He designed mini golf courses.
What year was it?
Well, he did this until 1929, so.
There were mini golf courses in 1929?
I'm sure there were. I mean, obviously there were. This guy designed them.
That seems like a recent phenomenon. I am unversed in mini golf history.
Until this until I read it, I was like, I didn't know you could do that for a living. I didn't know that was an option.
Goals, dog. Goals.
Yeah, goals for sure. Shout out Arnold Palmer.
I gotta refix shit. Then 1929, everything kind of went downhill with the whole the Great Depression and the economy tanking and all that. And one day in 1930, he parked his car on a bridge and disappeared and was not heard from for years. Everybody thought he jumped off the bridge into the water, but that wasn't the case. So everybody moved into Bedford in Boston, or in Massachusetts, and she got a letter of apology from her dad saying that he was still alive and living in California. And she was 16. She went to Miami because that's where you want to go. That's where you want to send a 16-year-old girl. And she lived there for 3 years. She traveled back and forth to Vallejo, California to see her dad. And she hadn't seen him since she was 6. So it's been 10 plus years since she's seen this guy who she thought died. And he was just like, oh, come on out to California. And, weather's nice. It's better than fucking Florida. So he had a job working at a shipyard in San Francisco. And he moved to LA in 1943. She followed and was working at a base exchange with her dad. And every once in a while, they'd go back to Massachusetts, or she would. But she got sent back in September for underage drinking. So, she liked to get weird.
Party. So she got sent.
Well, underage drinking in 1943. That was, how.
I think 18
unheard
was
of
the age
was
then.
that?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
So she got sent from California back to Massachusetts for underage drinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was supposed to go back to. Medford, where her mom lived, but she went back to Florida, and she only every once in a while went back to Massachusetts, just to check in, make sure everything was cool.
Sweet.
When she was back in Florida, though, she met this dude, and he was like a fighter pilot in the U.S. Army Air Force.
Metal.
Yeah, and he was like deployed. Like they met, and then he got deployed, and he went to China, Burma, India. And like all during World War II, he was like all over the place. So she told friends that he was going to propose and everything, and then but he was like recovering from injuries in a plane crash, and before he could get back to actually propose, he died in another plane crash.
Perfect.
So,
a lot of mechanical malfunction deaths on this episode tonight.
Seems like it, yeah. So she went back to LA in 1946, and 1947, January 15th, she was the lady was this lady, this broad, this chick, this dame. She was
so kind.
Yeah, we can edit out the politically incorrect ones. That's cool.
Full Greg.
So this lady was walking down the street and saw what she thought was a mannequin laying in a field because of the way it was posed and everything. And so she went over to check it out because that's what you do when you see a mannequin in a field.
What the fuck's that?
1947.
Mannequins don't belong in fields. They belong in
Right.
Macy's.
Yeah. So she went to go see this mannequin, and it wasn't a mannequin. So this lady splits and goes and calls the police, and the fuzz shows up. They basically found her body. It was pretty mutilated. Like her face had been sliced from the corners of her mouth, like up to her ears.
Glasgow smile.
That's exactly what they call it.
Yep.
Yep. She had cuts on her thighs and breasts, so much so that portions of flesh had been sliced away.
She's just hacked up.
Yeah, well, stay tuned.
Oh.
The lower half of her body was positioned a foot away from the upper half,
Wow.
and her intestines had been tucked neatly beneath her buttocks.
So she was disemboweled, and they just put them under her.
Yeah, like a pillow.
That's
And she was posed
That's
with
kind of
her
nice.
hands over her head and her arms bent at like 90 degrees, you know?
Wow.
like the I'm choking, I'm trying to breathe position.
No, like when you know how like when you lay back with
I
your
see, yeah.
hands behind your head or
When
whatever,
you're straight chill.
but like up above your head.
Okay.
Yeah, like think stupid Vogue fashion poses, mannequin poses.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
But just
That's-
missing half your.
Just
Yeah.
bisected.
Right. And then the nearby detectives found a sack of cement containing watery blood. So I'm guessing there was blood in the quickcrete.
Perfect.
And there was a high heel print amid the tracks. There was some shit going down, and there was a high heeled shoe print in the middle of it all.
Hers, perhaps, or
I don't know, because the body was washed and everything. Like this body was.
oh, that's right. I remember that about. This is immaculate, right?
Yeah, his body was squeaky clean. So somebody like murdered her, decided what they wanted to do, went there and did it, and then left. And somebody obviously at some point walked through wearing a high heel shoe, whether it was the suspect or somebody else, but it definitely wasn't Elizabeth Short.
It was the lady who thought it was a mannequin.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she was out walking her dog, so I'm doubting she was doing it in high heels, but it was the 40s. People dressed a lot snappier then.
They were only allowed to wear high heels.
And dresses.
And nobody walked around with words printed across the ass of their pants. Women didn't even wear pants; they wore dresses. Men wore suits. Everybody drank scotch at 10 a.m.
It sounds like the shit.
Yeah, sounds like the era I need to be in.
Go watch Mad Men. So, yeah, that's kind of it. There's some suspects. There's still people that they were like.
Yeah, it's unsolved to this day, and it's an open case. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
still, like,
not a
people are
closed
still
case.
trying to
Yeah,
figure
there are
it out.
literally
There's still people,
still
like, on the suspect
LA
list.
investigate. Yeah, there are investigators who are. If there's a tip, they take it.
Yeah.
It's active case.
And I'm sure we'll hear about it in the next few years.
Yeah, and what we'll do with Black Dahlia is Greg and I will touch on it a little more at some point and bring you guys a little we'll bring some of those like suspects to light, and I think I have a little bit of an idea. We'll edit this out if we decide we're gonna fall through on it, Greg. But
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a little idea for an in-depth little bonus thing here.
That'll be rad for sure.
Black Dahlias, so there's so much. It'll be fucking tight.
Thanks for the story, Greg. That was awesome.
Greg, great story. So what I'll
thanks.
give you is two things. Thing the first. And thing the second. Thank you for your story. Your
Great.
service is greatly appreciated.
Great.
The only person on the Serial Chillers podcast to have a theme song.
Fuck, Greg.
Besides the host of the show, right?
Right. And you're the one who makes those. Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Great, good story. Thank you for bringing Black Dahlia, because that one is we get a lot of.
I know I didn't go like super into it.
No, but that's
there's-
okay. Like, I like the ones where there's too much for you to have gone super in depth in that. We might have been talking about that longer than we're talking about Henry Lee Lucas today. But for somebody, you got the the spark ignited.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got my mind
Yeah,
racing.
Yeah,
for
Brandon's
sure.
gonna be
Go-
Wikipediaing this
go
shit on the
look
way
it up.
home.
Yeah, I'm gonna go figure out whose high heel that was.
There you go. See, you've got a goal now.
I'm
You
gonna
are
be
now a professional internet sleuth. Congratulations.
from Vallejo to LA. I'm gonna be tracking motherfuckers. Like,
You really want to take it far out there. In the footage of the moon landing, if you look in I think it's like the bottom left corner of one of the pictures, one of the frames, there's a high heel footprint in that. So I wonder if it's the same person.
Wow.
wow, now I'm not gonna be able to sleep
Because
tonight, Greg.
that was only 14 years apart. No, when did we land on the moon? When did we quote unquote land on the moon?
68.
Okay, so it was.
I like how you
11
said
years apart.
quote unquote.
No, 21 years apart. Well, I think we landed on the moon. We
Backstage.
just didn't do it when we said we did.
Yeah.
It was. I think for sure it was posed.
If you like that, I used to do a podcast about this kind of shit.
We can show you that too.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
So thank you, Greg. Good story. If you guys want to hear more about Black Dahlia, we might have some more for you later, but definitely encourage you to check that case out.
Look it up.
Yeah. So let's go back to Henry Lee Lucas. Remember, he has been taken to jail on this weapons charge, and he has just admitted to doing some, quote, bad things. So it's for you, Brandon. Henry Lee Lucas claims that he murdered as many as 600 people in 27 states between 1975 and 1983. Now, Henry Lee Lucas became known at this point as the Confession Killer.
Yeah.
There's a movie, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I don't know if you guys have heard of this movie. It's like a really classic, and maybe late 80s, early 90s B movie. Greg, have you seen it, heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Literally the first serial killer movie I ever got. I rented it from Razzmatazz Video because that's not some shit that Blockbuster would carry.
I used to go there all the time.
Yep, so I rented it from Razzmatazz.
Long time for sure.
And it was if everything that Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole confessed to, that's what this movie portrayed. As
Yeah.
if all of that really took place. So they claim that they went on murder sprees where they would just pull up to people who were
Doesn't matter.
broken down on the side of the road and gun them down. They would break into houses and murder the children and rape the wife and make the husband watch and then disembowel him. And one of the cops quoted it as some type of sick, evil Olympics where they were just always trying to one up each other on how evil or how gnarly they could kill somebody, or they were just. And again, a lot of this can't be corroborated. Like I said, a lot of Ottis Toole's that he went on in that kind of spree where he is by himself is a little more concrete. And Ottis Toole is truly responsible for a lot of shit. Henry Lee Lucas just sort of seemed like he was willing to take credit for just about anything because he sort of played his cards right, if you ask me. He knew that he was more valuable alive than dead at this point, and they needed him to get, these convictions and solve these cases. So at this point, he's just confessing to really anything he can.
Seems like he wants just credit.
He confesses to killing Becky on August 24th, 1982, and having sex with her corpse and cutting her body into 9 pieces while scattering it all over the field. Later,
I call bullshit. I don't think he can count tonight.
Later,
not with that IQ, huh?
He says he later buried the pieces. He confessed to stabbing Kate Rich to death on September 17th, 1982. So apparently it was a couple weeks later, not a couple hours later. I have differing stories there. So maybe, so it was a few weeks later that he said that she was missing and Kate Rich was killed. So anyway, he engaged in intercourse with her corpse and then stuffed her into a drain pipe. He would later return, take her body, and attempt to incinerate it in the church oven.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's funny too is that this guy gets caught stealing a truck, but
that's a weapons charge, I believe. He had a pistol with him or something, and he just needed to get it off his chest while he was in there. I think he knew his time was done. Regardless of if he got out then or not, I don't think he had much left in him. So 1984, He's prompted almost daily with extensive files and information of past murders. He claimed many as his own work. A lot of law enforcement agencies came from all over the country. Like, look, we have this unsolved murder. It fits. Were you here? And he'll just go,
Yeah.
yep, I was there. And he's just admitting to every single one. It says here that he was given milkshakes, clean clothes, cigarettes, and coffee whenever he needed it by Williamson County Sheriff Jim Boutwell as compensation for his help in the murder cases.
Like, how has it helped to them? Like,
They're getting to close the cases.
Yeah, he's
wow.
Yeah.
definitely I guess his IQ might be brighter
Right.
than we thought.
So, and I don't know exactly how it works in what police forces or how it did in 1984, but I know that closing a case is it's kind of a big deal. There's closure. The families get to
Move
have
along,
closure. The detectives get to close the case and move on, and it's good for everybody
quote unquote.
if it's the truth. It seems like getting a name like the Confession Killer that it may not be the truth. So, he's just getting hooked up. He claimed he killed this famous hitchhiker Orange Socks on October 31st, 1979. He went to trial on April 2nd. Let's look a little bit at the Orange Socks case. This is kind of one that pretty iffy, and I wanted to kind of dive into it because there's a little validity to it, but all of his other, we're not going to go over 600 murders here tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about like 4 murders, but this is one. So the Orange Socks murder is essentially a Jane Doe is found on the side of the road. She's wearing nothing but orange socks. She doesn't become known as Jane Doe. She becomes known as Orange Socks. Henry Lee Lucas claims that he murdered Orange Socks. So on Halloween 1979, Henry is... Sorry, missed my spot here. Okay. So April 2nd, 1984 is when he's going to face the murder trial. This is for the murder of Orange Socks in Halloween night 1979. The stakes are high. Lucas is facing up to the death penalty for this. There is absolutely no physical evidence linking him to the crime. But as in so many other cases, Henry Lee Lucas has confessed to it. At one point, before the trial, he recanted his confession, but later said he wanted the death penalty anyway. Regardless, his attorneys mounted an aggressive defense based on an alibi. Don Higginbotham, Lucas's defense attorney, claimed that at the time of the alleged murder in Central Texas, Lucas was working on the roof of a naval air station in Jacksonville, Florida. So he's a roofer. Prosecutors argued that Lucas was recorded saying that he paid off the roofing foreman so that he could leave work for long periods of time and still get paid. The defense argued that such a payoff was implausible and Lucas lied to investigators only to please them during the interview. Higginbotham also said that Lucas was working for a federal entity at the Naval Air Station and they were awarded bonuses for early completed work. The attorney pointed out that the foreman could have been financially better off by completing the job early than allowing Henry Lee Lucas to take days off for a few paltry dollars.
Yeah.
Lucas, however, had cashed a paycheck in Florida the day after the murder, making it nearly impossible for him to have committed the crime in Texas. An expert confirmed Lucas's signature was his on the back of the check. Prosecutor Ken Anderson suggested that Lucas did indeed cash the check, but still had plenty of time to get back to Texas to commit the crime. So he was saying he could have done that in one day.
Yeah.
He totally had that. That's let's see. Higginbotham defied the prosecutor's assertion, saying, quote, "It's approximately 12 to 1,300 miles from Williamson County to Jacksonville. He would have had to be averaging somewhere between 70 miles per hour the entire time to get back, and that means no stops. It is nearly impossible to complete." Higginbotham's theory lost its impact after the jury heard a taped confession from Lucas. It's kind of a long one here. Henry says, quote, "We were talking about sex, and she told me, 'Not right now.' She went to jump out of the car when I grabbed her and pulled her back into the car. She was fighting so hard. I almost lost control of the car and wrecked. I pulled over and grabbed her by the neck and choked her until she died. Then I had sex with her again several times." So, more Henry Lee Lucas. So once the jury hears a voice recording of him saying that, the fact that
It's nearly impossible makes it very possible.
almost didn't matter to them because they've got him saying, yeah, hell yeah, I did it.
Which,
here's the details.
Like
and a lot of the details match up to what actually happened, and it wasn't released to the general public. A lot of people just say, well, the police fed him the information and he's admitting to it, and everybody wins here.
Sounds like something.
Sounds like something indeed. So Lucas said that he drove all the way to Georgetown, Texas, with a dead woman in the back seat, orange socks. On videotape, he described where he took the girl. So he's got the details. Again, like I said, he knows where she was.
He also got milkshakes and
and cigarettes and hot coffee and clean clothes. The defense maintained that Lucas was fed the details by investigators, weaving the facts into false and improbable story. They said that the defendant didn't know many key facts of the crime in his first taped confession, was fed the details, and his later confessions were far more detailed and fit perfectly. The prosecution argued that if Lucas accidentally confessed to murdering orange socks, it was only because he had killed so many others. In the end, Lucas's confession was enough to convince the jury of his guilt. What penalty was handed down to Henry after the guilty sentence?
What year is this?
This is 1984.
This is a question?
This is a question. What penalty was handed down? There are multiple choice options. If you are going to stab at it, you need to be exact. Would you guys... Brandon's already written something down for a stab. Greg, would you like to stab?
No.
Greg's not going to stab. Joey, would you like to stab?
No.
You don't. Let me see what you got over there, buddy. Don't say it because they're going to go for multiple choice. I just want to see what you got.
But in my defense, maybe I should just go for multiple choice.
Well, don't show me that if you want to do that. If you want to stab at it, you show me that because you don't get a chance at multiple choice.
I go for the win.
It's 1,000 points if you stab.
What year is this?
This is 1984. If you get this and they don't, it is going to be very hard for them to win.
All right, here we go.
Just show me because I'm not going to call it out because they still have to put something down. All right.
I got it wrong.
We'll see. Does he get
Probably.
A, death, B, life without parole, C, life with the possibility of parole, or D, 40 to life?
I'm going to say...
Can you read that again, please?
Yeah, wait, look, don't say it yet. Greg.
Yeah, don't say it. I have an answer.
A is death, B is life without parole, C is life with the possibility of parole, and D is 40 to life. Joey says C, life with possibility of parole. Greg, what do you got?
Taking life without possibility of parole.
And Brandon said death. So that was on the list. How do you feel about it, Brandon? It's on the list. Do you feel like you got it right? These guys said the same thing. They're both going life with the possibility of parole. Do you feel like you just won?
I'm not feeling that good, but we'll see what happens.
He was found guilty and handed the death penalty. Brandon scores 1,000 points to mount what seems to be, and if I'm not mistaken,
his
an
own theme
insurmountable
song.
lead. Well, don't get ahead of yourself, buddy. I don't think there's enough points on the last question for anybody to recover. Sorry, guys. It might be a little over. Greg, you might be able to go for posterity and still get that last one right. I was hyping you up about earlier.
Can I time and refer back to my tiebreaker earlier?
I don't think so. No. He's
my hopes up, you son of a bitch.
He's 1,000. He's 1,000 poinds ahead of you. I think
I'm sorry,
the
Greg.
next question is worth only 500 points. So.
I'll get that one right too.
So he's found guilty and handed down a death penalty. We're moving to 1985, and he begins to recant a lot of the confessions he's made over the years. He claimed that, quote, the jig is up, and that he just wanted to show that law enforcement does not do its business. He also claimed that police stripped him naked, denied him cigarettes and bedding. So he says the jig is up and just wanted to show the law enforcement doesn't do its business. Also, Lucas claimed that the police stripped him naked, denied him cigarettes and bedding, held him in a cold cell, and did not allow him to contact an attorney. After 4 days of this treatment, Lucas claimed he decided to confess to multiple crimes in a desperate bid to improve his treatment. Quote, I am not allowed to contact anyone. Oh, wait. I'm going to bring that back to you here. Let's see. Later this year, a Texas grand jury declined to indict him on 3 McLennan County murder confessions. So it's starting to get to a point where his confessions are, some of them aren't even being corroborated. Some grand juries are saying, like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
we're not
bogus.
going to charge you for this, you piece of shit. Stop getting into this. So at the end of his confession, he writes down a handwritten addendum. And this is where he says, quote, I am not allowed to contact anyone. I'm in here by myself and still can't talk to a lawyer. On this, I have no rights. So what can I do to convince you about all of this? End quote. So this is on his signed confession. He's pretty much saying, like, these guys are fucking me over, and here's what it is. Like, what do I do? Here you go. In 1986, notable lack of evidence to support his confessions prompted by police. The convictions dwindled down to only 10 murders, 9 of which were committed in Texas. At the end of his confessions, that's where he at, sorry. He was sentenced to total, this is going to be all of Henry Lee Lucas's kind of added all up. After all the court, the court was so convoluted. I wasn't even going to start getting into all these cases. But
Probably
by the end,
500 years
he
or
is sentenced with 1 death penalty, 5 life sentences, 1 life without parole, and 210 years in prison.
Yeah, wow.
So, in 1987, they also rule out the confession to the murder of Labrada Apodaca. It was not admissible in any type of evidence. In 1988, after saying his confessions were a hoax, he begins talking about his murders again. It seems like he wanted to drum up a little attention for himself once more. And Henry Lee Lucas is very good at this. He's, as I'm doing the research for these, I'll Google Henry Lee Lucas documentary or any of the killers I've done, and most of them have at least one something someone did.
Yeah.
You can listen to Henry Lee Lucas talk to the camera directly for hours if you want to. There's so much of it. He's interviewed so much, and he is an open book.
He loves it.
He loved it. He soaked it up. So in 89, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed Lucas's convictions in the Orange Sox murder case.
Wow.
So they're saying, despite all the improbabilities, they said he was guilty, and they were right. We're not overturning this.
Before we skip that, what are your guys' opinion on that? I would love to hear it.
I don't think he did it.
Yeah.
I think that he killed his mom. I think he killed Becky. I think he killed Kate Rich. And I don't know that he did even the other
350.
7. Yeah, or the 10 that he was convicted of total. So, let's see. In 89. Oh, that's it. Okay, so in 1990, he's now 54 years old. He was taken from death row and flown by Florida officers back to Tallahassee after his first execution date of December 3rd was gained a stay. In 1995, he is granted another stay so his false confessions could be investigated. In 1998, question number 9. A Texas governor commuted his death sentence to 1 life sentence. Can you give me this Texas governor's name?
I already won, Greg. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't even want to play anymore.
Well, let's see here. Let me look at the points.
I'll give you
Joey,
a
you can still move into second. And remember, second gets a prize. Third does not. You could knock Greg off of the prize podium.
Which would be awesome.
Joey's got an answer. I already saw it.
This one's for the fans.
This one's for the fans. Greg, don't give me anything yet. He's writing his down.
And
Brandon,
again,
by him. Okay, Brandon, show me what you got.
you got to read it right out
Show
loud.
me. Actually, show me what. Okay, then Greg, what do you say?
I got Bush.
2 George Bush's 2 correct answers.
And the winner.
Brandon says Kobe Bryant. Goddamn asshole. Still wins. It's all over. Brandon's going to win it. Greg got Bush and does indeed keep his second place alive. George W. Bush, Texas governor at the time, commuted the June 30th death sentence to 1 life imprisonment.
Man.
March 12th, 2001, he's 64 years old, and god damn it, finally, Henry Lee Lucas is found dead in Ellis Prison. He was serving all of his life sentences for the 9 murders, and he died of natural causes.
AKA somebody stick it to him.
Perhaps. So the final score on this one, Brandon 1,500, Greg 1,000, Joey 750. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's been awesome.
Yeah, I'm very glad. Greg, what do you have to say for yourself?
I'm sorry. Sorry to everybody I let down.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, next time I talk, just play Greg's theme song over
Oh my
mine.
God. So thank you guys for being here.
Going after it, man. Come on.
It was nice playing with you, Greg.
Too,
Nice
man.
story as well. It was awesome.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you Beer Savage, and thank you for listening to episode 18 of the Serial Chillers podcast. All right, guys, that was episode 18 of the Serial Chillers podcast, and I want to thank you again for hanging in there. There's so much more that goes into this story. I just wanted to touch kind of the bare bones here. I know there's a lot extra that goes to this, and a lot of sensationalized stories, a lot of ones that Henry himself told. So there's a lot out there that definitely is not true. There's a lot out there that may not be true, and then there's some out there that is definitely true. Henry did kill his mother. Henry very well may have killed his young lover and Kate Rich. So we'll never really know. Henry's dead now, and honestly, good riddance, right? So congratulations to Brandon on his victory. He'll be receiving a Beer Savage prize package. He's enjoying it already. I know he is. I know there's plenty left out of this Henry Lee Lucas episode, including the Hand of Death. If anybody is familiar, the Hand of Death was just a satanic cult that Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole claimed to have just been pawns for. There's a little bit of evidence to it, just like every great conspiracy theory. I'll let producer Greg get into that with you guys. If you want to reach out to us and touch on those theories with us at all, somehow, anyway, so many ways. Facebook, Serial Chillers Podcast. Instagram, @Serial Chillers Podcast. The Twitter page is @Chillers Podcast. You can email us, serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. You can even call and leave a voicemail on the phone number. That's international code 1, area code 805-666-2513. That's 1-805-666-2513. You can also visit serialchillerspodcast.com for all of the show notes. You can keep along with the show and see how you do compared to the Serial Chillers here in the studio. Remember, the show is now on YouTube, and you can listen to it that way. Of course, we always have the Patreon. That's patreon.com/serialchillerspodcast. I've jumped into that plenty of times, but you can give as little as $1 a month to the show. Also, find me on Untapped. We didn't get into too many beers this week, other than just a nice 6-pack of Grapefruit Sculpin. Research came from Radford University Timeline, researched by Lauren Akers, Josette Anderson, Teresa Boyd, Jennifer Dangenhart, Amy C. Hill, Gregory Kerwin, Mary Morrison, Jesse Rosenthal, Jesse Smith, Natil Flemons, and Jamie Kuzbach. All of that information was summarized by Matt Bullins, Chelsea Rakes, Meredith Gumbar, Ashley Griffith, Kayla Hodge, Allison Plummer, Sarah Pittman, and Margaret Kosicki. I also used Wikipedia for the Adam Walsh story, as well as filling in some of the Henry Lee Lucas gaps. Murderpedia used the article Henry Lee Lucas by Jason Johns. Watched the documentary Ottis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas by Biography. And I did not watch this, but I got a lot of my memory of the sensationalized craziness that was them from the movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. It is a wonderful, wonderful piece. Shout out to Razzmatazz Video for having it when I was 11 years old. It stars a young Michael Rooker, by the way, so maybe you want to check that out. Intro is Broken Glass and Potato Chips by Fred Getstoned and the Barney Rumbles, and you can hear lots of cool sounds like that and more at soundcloud.com/HellaGreg. The outro this week? Original. That's right. If you're still listening, thank you guys so much for the support. Congratulations, Brandon, on your win. Stay tuned. We have lots of great things to come. And as always, don't talk to strangers.